Hello and welcome to the CX Files podcast. I'm your host, Mark Hillary. Matt Sims is the founding director of 4t4Consult, based in the UK. Until last year, he was the CEO of Teleperformance in the UK and South Africa. He's taken some time off to go running and fishing, but now he's decided to venture back into the CX market as an advisor. I called Matt to ask about the companies that he's talking to and some of the problems they seem to be facing. Okay, well, we've known each other for a few years now, and until last year, you were the UK and South Africa chief executive at Teleperformance. So tell me, where you've been, what are you doing, what are you up to now with your new venture, and what are you focused on right now?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Thanks for the opportunity to engage again and have this conversation. It's been a long while, as you say, and I've pretty much been out of the industry now for around 6 months, having formerly been the CEO of TP UK in South Africa, as you mentioned. And what have I been doing over the last 6 months? Well, I guess some of the fun things that I've been doing are worth mentioning. I've spent some time running ultramarathons. I completed 4 ultramarathons last year, and I think, as you know, one of those was the Marathon des Sables. So a couple of bucket list items kicked off there for me. I also learned how to sea fish, which was an incredibly interesting and, as I found out, quite cathartic leisurely activity down on the south coast of the UK. So over the last 6 months, where I've taken some time out of the industry, I pretty much have disengaged from the industry completely over that period of time. It gave me the opportunity to think about the last 25 years of work in the contact center industry. And when I say 25 years, it feels almost longer than it should do. But it really is 25 years now for me in outsourcing. So that opportunity to take a step back, look at what I've accomplished over the last 25 years and the organizations that I've worked for, it allowed me to start thinking about whether or not I wanted to stay in the industry, whether I thought it would be an opportunity for me to go and do something different. And having spent time talking to industry colleagues, analysts, people like yourself, and former clients of mine, I quite quickly realized that I think there still is a place in the market for me outside of a corporate life. And I guess that's probably one highlight just to share and formalize with you right now is that one of the key decisions I've made is that I'm not intending on going back into corporate life right now. Over the last few years, I've really thought long and hard with my partner about the opportunity of setting up an advisory company to support the contact center industry and other wider organizations as well as the contact center industry. And really that's where we've found ourselves now, is incorporating a business with a view to support predominantly the BPO sector, looking at helping organizations in an advisory and consulting capacity.
Okay, so you're coming back, but as an advisor now, and I suppose it's a faster moving period right now in the kind of the whole CX and outsourcing space. What are your thoughts about the state of the industry in general right now? I mean, what are the main challenges that you can see, and where are the opportunities as well? The last question you asked there, Mark, the opportunities and the challenges, is one that it's the eternal question, isn't it? And it's one that I know you and I have engaged on in the past in my former life. And actually, I've got an article coming out that I've written for the GSA. I think it's next week in relation to exactly the same questions. So, listeners of the podcast, I'm sure will get the opportunity to have a look at that for themselves. You talk about it being a fast-paced marketplace and industry. I would say that it's arguably no faster than it has been in the last 5 years. I think there's a huge amount of disruption still taking place in the market, and that is largely around tech. Again, we've had the opportunity to talk about tech and the impact and influence of technology and the solutions that technology offers to the marketplace over the last few years. I think for me, some of the disruption around that, in my opinion, has been negative. I think a lot of organisations have been out on both buy and sell side with a view that technology, things like bots, automation and artificial intelligence are the panacea to everybody's problems, the silver bullet, if you will, and incorporating those solutions into their customer experience operations are going to fix all of their problems. You know, they're going to reduce contact center wastage. They're going to make contact center operations more efficient. They're going to increase revenues. They're going to make customers happier with the environment and the experience that they get from those technologies. I think the furore that came about in the last 36 months around some of those technologies has kind of come back round full circle now. And some of the conversations I've been having in the industry over the last month or so have been quite refreshing, because a lot of organisations, both on the buy and the sell side, are starting to be a little bit more, I guess, honest with themselves around what technology can and can't do. I think we all have to be kind of cognizant of the fact that technology is still in its infancy in relation to some of the faster paced and the more buzzy technologies around AI, for example. I think we are starting to see some very good case studies and some user references now in relation to automation. And typically that automation, in my opinion, is where you've got human and technology augmentation. So bringing people and technologies together to provide a better customer experience solution. Just to cover off some of the opportunities and challenges, well, I'm not sure that the challenges are much different, Mark, than they have been over the last 5 or so years. I think the contact centre marketplace in the UK right now is still hugely challenged from a saturation perspective. There's still the cost of entry into the market is still very, very low. The level of competition in the BPO service provider space in the UK is at an all-time high. Everybody's still chasing the same business. Everybody's still trying to deploy technologies. Everybody's still trying to sell the benefits of analytics, et cetera, et cetera. I think the organizations that are coming to the fore in regard to being successful in the BPO sector right now are the organizations that are building themselves an ecosystem of capability around themselves, whether that be through building their own technologies, their own solutions and their own platforms, whether it be from acquiring them or whether it be from actually having a service partner ecosystem wrapped around them where they've got those technologies coming into play. So with that challenge, there's also obviously a significant opportunity. The opportunity still exists to bring those technologies in, to understand what those technology capabilities are, and to maintain a level of flexibility around how you use those technologies. I would argue that still organizations are rushing to implement these technologies, thinking that the capability of them is immediate, when the reality of it is that it's very iterative. It's a very learning-oriented process of technology deployment. And I'm not 100% convinced that organizations, both buy and sell side in the BPO sector, are taking enough time to actually look back at the technologies they've deployed and the success of those technologies, and almost more importantly, how they're measuring the success of those activities. Because as we know, just because you might reduce AHT in a contact center contact environment by X number of seconds, it doesn't necessarily mean you're getting customer advocacy and you're getting customer loyalty, you're increasing revenue and all of those great things as well.
And so I think, I was going to say then, so where are you fitting into the market then? Are you working more with the contact center operators on the sales side, or are you working with the clients who need to design their CX?
The intention, Mark, is to work with both the buy and the sell side, but it's also to work with some of the service partners as well, the ecosystem, if you will, that I referred to around partner capability that can come to organizations and work and help supplement what they're doing today. We're spending time at the moment. We've got a couple of deployments of service that we're already running on behalf of organizations in relation to business transformation. So where we're helping organizations look at target operating models, look at operational best practice, look at technology deployment, and look at partner selection and rationalization. And we're also looking at how we can work with organizations to help them grow themselves. And they're typically on the south side, so the BPO service providers is probably a better way of describing it. I think everybody out there recognizes the challenge around growth and the challenge around making sure that you can at least stand toe to toe with your competition. I think without the ability to do that, you don't have an ability to grow.
Yeah, that's interesting because you're not just talking about working on advising on an AI deployment in a contact center or something, but you're actually talking about how do these organizations grow their pipeline and grow their business. And I saw on your website that you were talking a bit about social sales and how they can benefit from this approach to sales. And that's something that I've been writing about a lot for years now because, I've been talking about this evolution of content marketing moving in much more into the kind of sales environment. And especially B2B sales, your reputation and what comes up when somebody punches your name in LinkedIn really matters these days. So is this also an area where you're helping the CX providers?
Yeah. The simple answer to the question, Mark, is absolutely yes. I think it would be unfair of me not to call you out in relation to your help and support of me individually and in my former life as somebody that helped me learn about social sales and the use of social media as a form of growth and a methodology to help support organizations build and grow their own pipeline and revenues. So just get that call out of the way. But no, you're absolutely right. I think the conversations that we're having right now with certain organizations are organizations that provide a very solid service. They provide very solid solutions to their customers today. However, they can be almost invisible in the marketplace. It still surprises me, or has surprised me more in the last couple of months talking to some organizations about how they recognize that social media, how they recognize that social tools like LinkedIn, for example, are capable of helping to support them do what they need to do, i.e. they need to grow, they need to have a brand identity and better brand awareness in the marketplace. Yet they're doing nothing about it. So what we're talking to them about is how to leverage those tools, how to work with those tools, how to make sure that they are on point with messaging, how to make sure that their targeting and their prospecting activity is on point, and making sure that it isn't just a one-off engagement in relation to this as a strategy. It has to be an ongoing deployment of initiative and activity in order to create the awareness and maintain the brand that people want in order to try and secure growth in the marketplace.
Yeah, and clearly that's an area that's important for all of these companies right now. We're still at the beginning of the decade. We're still in January, and given what we've just been talking about, these different areas that you've been looking at and exploring, and now the fact that you've come in as an advisor back into the marketplace, what do you think that the companies you're talking to can really do to ensure success? I mean, is there a focus on CX or the technology or the people or even the locations?
Well, all four of those items that you mentioned, Mark, are absolutely fundamental to getting the right target operating model deployed within a contact center. We've seen the state of the economy in the UK marketplace right now, and in my opinion, it's creating a level of challenge for people on the buy side when it comes to making decisions about where they deliver their business from, what technologies they deploy, and also around whether or not they continue to run operations themselves, whether they outsource operations or whether they run a hybrid of insource and outsource when it comes to the delivery of those activities. I think for me, given the experience that I've got in the marketplace, the opportunity exists to help support those buy-side organizations with decision making, but not just decision making around what partner to select, but also around which geographies to go to, which technologies to deploy, how to build a target operating model, how to really understand customer journeys, and as I said before, more importantly, how to evaluate how you're deploying all of those things together, there's no question that organizations on the buy side and also on the sell side will continue to grow their business and diversify their business through offshore, as an example. We've seen in the last 12 to 18 months a huge appetite for organizations to look closer at South Africa, and the South African contact center market is growing exponentially, and a lot of that work is coming out of the UK, but they're now attracting business from Australia and also North America as those geographies themselves look to diversify their risk. How and where those organizations that want to outsource continue to be successful, or whether in fact they want to continue running with in-house operations, are those organizations that have people and have the skills deployed within them to really effectively look at how to deploy people, how to engineer their operating model, how to evaluate which geographies to deliver their business from and which technologies they use to deliver the customer experience which all of the shareholders expect, and importantly, all of the customers expect who buy product or service from those organizations.
Okay, and then just as a final point, on that topic you raised there about this sort of renaissance of offshore outsourcing, are we seeing this growth again in this area because the operators offshore are getting better, or is it because there's a greater channel mix, perhaps? There's a lot more chat support. A lot of the old problems that companies used to have was, about people obviously being far away from the customer.
Yeah, there's a whole raft of points in relation to that, Mark, but I'll try and cover off a couple of them. I think on the buy side, I think there's a huge amount of economic reason to push business into offshore environments right now. I think everybody is rushing to save cost. You look at the utilities market, for example, and the retail market as well. We've seen casualties in the market in the UK. Everybody's rushing to try and save cost in terms of the delivery of their services right now. Offshore is being seen by some of them as a tactical initiative to keep shareholders happy and to prop up profitability of those businesses. Other companies, the more strategic ones, are looking at the long-term strategy and future of how to deliver, as you suggest, a cross-border service capability. And I think there is no question at all that the maturity of some of the offshore markets is growing stronger and stronger and stronger. Nobody can question the capability in India for delivery of middle and back office services, and also the intellectual capability and capacity in terms of number of people that exist in that geography today to help support technology growth and technology solution development as well. The Philippines, there's no question around the service capability, the customer service capability, and the experience that they offer to a whole spectrum of geographies across the world. And I referenced South Africa as well, Mark, and I've been working out of that geography for around the last 10 years in two different organizations. And I've seen sizable change, development and maturity of that market. And that skills gap is being closed on a day-to-day basis. And you only have to look at the growth of South Africa as a market, not just for the UK, but Australia and the US, as I mentioned before, to see that that as a market is becoming ever more popular.
Thanks for listening to the CX Files podcast. Please take a moment to review the podcast because this helps other listeners to find it. And if you have any suggestions, then get in touch with me on Twitter or LinkedIn. I'm @Mark Hillary with 2 L's, or just search Google for Mark Hillary.